Okay, I am generally very reluctant to talk about personal family matters, but the purpose of this show is to talk about family dynamics. So before people put that accusing finger out there, they don't have any right to. They don't always know all the story. I could say that my brother, actually, other than his bad choices that he made in life, was actually a gentle giant, actually, because he had a really, really good heart. Maybe not physiologically, but, you know, symbolically, whatever. He had a really good heart. He was actually a really good person. But people choose to get into things that they shouldn't do. Drugs controlled his life for a good part of it. Not when he was married, though. He had a good job, fabrication. I think his main job was fabrication for, God, they made parts for, what is that company? They make these truck parts. They make the panels. They make the, I forgot what it was. Famous name. Truck company that his company made parts for. He even had a job in cabinetry making. I mean, when he was married, had anything he wanted. Car broke down, his wife would just go and buy a brand new truck for him. Pretty good situation. They had the dog. They had a beautiful house. Her net worth was in the millions, as far as on paper anyway, at the time. Living the life. Well, she wasn't really innocent herself. I mean, she did partake in a little bit of the herb. She definitely partaked more so later on in alcohol, which wound up killing her liver, besides having hepatitis that she didn't want to treat. Why? I don't know. I don't know. So many things happen even with her. But when people want to point these fingers at people when they don't really know the story. Now, of course, my brother did die. I want to give him a little bit of honor. He deserves a little bit of that. Now, we are talking about toxicity in families, and it could be friends, it could be relatives, whatever it might be, but the general topic is basically on toxicity and either what causes it, how people wind up living their lives even at a later date, even though they're off all this horrible drugs. He was a good person. He was. I knew he was internally. That's why I helped him. Nobody has a clue, other than what I may have talked about, how far I went for him, even for when he was 16 years old and I was 14. Coming out to his rescue with my dad on situations. I mean, it was just terrible what he put my parents through. It really was. Especially my mom. Anyway, Mr. Rescue Rooter here, what people don't know when they're making these false statements that I don't care about my brother, I'm not out there to be with him, to be his nurse aide and all this other shit. If you had any clue, and had any clue whatsoever, to know what I have done for my brother, which I've never even done for myself, really. Always to the rescue. Always. I was there when he had his first stroke. We were in the car. We were going to go downtown. All of a sudden, found it hard to swallow. I said, drink some water. He couldn't swallow it. I said, you're having a stroke. I knew better. Immediately took him to the hospital and saved his ass. People don't know that. During my time when I was actually staying with my brother, for the year I had to spend in Hawaii, and I was living in his little studio apartment, because the tenants were living in, it used to be my old place, in the house. In the middle of the night, I hear him calling out to me. He's laying on the floor. He couldn't get up. Either because he was drinking, or he didn't have the ability to get up on his own. He somehow fell off his chair, was on the floor. I was there. A lot of thank yous from my brother. I had a lot of thank yous from him, okay? My brother lived partially a really good life and then a really bad life. This could be like a talk in general about how drugs affect people too. That could be a whole nother show, but I'm not going to go into that. I hate any kind of street drugs, that shit like that. You need to take a prescription, fine. You can make fun of that too. People will make fun of just about everything. But when you don't know the whole story, then you shouldn't talk about it. I used to send money to my brother, sometimes when he needed it or not. You don't know that. As far as people like Popeye and Nico that very graciously point out and make a lot of, let's call it falsifications, where they falsify information to make me look like I'm some kind of a real creep that didn't care about his family members. As Tyler Perry was saying in that little video that I put on there, there are toxic members of the family, even my sister. And my sister? All right, she was a good-hearted person too. Well, until she married this, well, the wrong guy, all right, who was very overpowering, very controlling. What he says goes. He's one of those guineas that are very controlling, and sometimes you do have that in Italian families. Very controlling. He was one of them type of guineas, I call it guinea for a reason, because he did not exemplify, he did not paint really a picture of a really good Italian-American man at all. Italians by nature are good-hearted. He was just very controlling, and she would abide by whatever he wants to go by. Even trying to make a phone call to her to find out about my brother. And Nico, I got to get back to this. Nico putting statements out there that, oh, I didn't find out my brother was dead. What kind of relationship was that for 2 weeks later? Well, Nico, it's not really worth my oxygen to even talk about this, but I really will, because you're very dense. Sometimes there's things you have no control of. How would I know if my brother passed away unless somebody told me? I talked to my brother. The frequency, most families don't even talk to their relatives as much as I did. There's no more than a 3-day stretch that I communicated with my brother all the time to see how he's doing, to give him some moral support. There were times I gave him financial support. I've reduced his rent several times. All he had to do was pay the rent. He didn't pay electricity. He didn't pay cable TV, nothing like that. I did. So when you're putting out all these lousy character assassinations on me, saying I'm not a good brother, not a good father, I'm not a good anything, just take a look at yourself and self-reflect before you start, again, pointing your accusative finger to me. Now, I'm doing this show basically in honor of my brother, really. Because despite my brother's, and he deserves some honor, since he's been attacked so much, not even knowing him. My brother was a very good person. You get into drugs, and Nico knows a lot about drugs. He admitted he was a drug addict. Still is, or was, whatever, but he admitted that, so Nico can't afford to talk. My brother was a good man with a good heart. Many times we sat down just looking at all the plants and flowers and bushes and everything that we planted. He said, you know what, Frankie, together we made this. We made this. He loved growing things, flowers. He grew some cactus. He grew some other plants. He enjoyed doing that. So did I. We had some commonality, me and my brother. Somewhere back in his life, probably as early as 14, you know how people like to impress other people, to join in and be accepted. Just like on YouTube, people want to be accepted into a hate group on here to get some recognition of somehow, some sick recognition. Same thing. A little different, but same thing. So he got into drugs, and that controlled a good part of his life until he got married. Oh, she was not innocent. She partaked in a few things in the past, but she didn't continue, really, except smoking marijuana, and she definitely got into drinking, much later on, actually, on that. I've met her many times. I used to really like her. So when people talk ill of my brother, you don't know him. And when you make accusations that I didn't care about my brother, you have no idea, except what I'm telling you. None at all. Sure, he loved when I came back to Hawaii for that year. I didn't plan a year, but something else planned it for me, obviously. We spent a lot of quality time together. But still, the negativity, it was killing me. After all, I was living in his unit, housing there, yes, with permission from county housing, because he was on county housing. I had to get, and just to straighten that out, from the liars out there, I had to get permission from county housing. You would be correct to say that I shouldn't have been there. But under the circumstances where she knew I was selling the house and also my brother was ill, she allowed me to stay there. So that's another little myth that I'm going to bust. Let's call it the Mythbusters show, too. Totally had permission to be there. I would never jeopardize my brother in his position on county housing where he got a break on his rent. I would never do that to him under any circumstance whatsoever. Yes, I had permission to be there, despite what the tenants said. Also very, 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 very toxic people. Very toxic. Nobody knows what I went through for that year plus that I got stuck in Hawaii. Well, I always love saying that, stuck in Hawaii. If you're going to be stuck anywhere, Hawaii's not a bad place to be stuck. It's a beautiful place. But basically, I was being imprisoned by the system that I couldn't leave the country. And yes, as much as the great character and qualities my brother has internally, it was living with toxins because his moods would change. He was ill, and mentally, because he fell one time, not fall, he had a building structure fall on him a long time ago over in Seattle, Washington, where he was working as a casual laborer one time, and the truss of a building thing came down in the newspapers, everything. He had to have a rod put through his leg. He had a big gash on his forehead where your there are certain functions, frontal lobe damage, which actually contributed to his moods, his mobility, all that stuff. So, was he really a toxic person by nature? No, he wasn't. I'm doing this in honor of my brother, actually. This show is really in honor of him. My brother was toxic, but not always by choice. And I didn't realize this until, it wasn't even that terribly long ago, really. About a year or so, where he did have damage to his frontal lobe, and that controls certain things, even your moods. He went off on a friend to prove it. Rose always visited him. Rose was this religious Bible thumper type of chick. But they did each other favors. When she needed a ride, go to the food bank or something, or go shopping, my brother would be there for her. Of course, she'll pay for some gas, but that was about it. He did that even when he didn't want to do it for her. But Rose was visiting him one day, and all of a sudden, he just went off on her. He just went off on her. It was very toxic. Yelling things at her, which he never did before. And he would get into these moods. There we go with that frontal lobe shit going on, right? As I said, I'm doing this show in honor of my brother. He deserves that much. He deserves that much. The haters out there that like to make up stories to make somebody look bad because, look, I say all the time, because their life is not perfect and they don't want to see anybody else be happy and they'll attack your family. That's the whole idea. Yeah, my brother could have been very, very toxic. And all the years I lived in Hawaii, don't forget I was living right next door to him. Nobody knows what I went through. No, they don't. They don't. There were times I shut my curtains and shut the door, and when he was in one of his moods, and I said, I don't even want to approach him, until he got out of whatever mood he was in. And as of his moods, we actually had 2 physical fights. We've never fought like that. It could have been pretty bad, too, because I could have really hurt him. The most he got was a broken thumb. He was lucky it didn't go any more than that, because it was that bad. When he got into a fight with me like that, I said, you know what? You're my brother, but you're dangerous. I can't, anticipate your moods. It scares me sometimes. I said, I want you out. I said, I think, you need to talk to the police. Because this is the second time. I just can't control your moods. And I don't know, you could be dangerous to me. How do we know he's not going to pick up a fucking metal pipe or something? And it was really at that point. I'm not kidding. When he knew I was going to have the police come over and talk to him, he was still without shoes on. And he ran away all the way into the next town with no shoes on to Keau. Police came over. They were looking for him in the woods and everything. They couldn't find him. I said, yeah, you're right. The police are looking for you. Yeah, that was my family member. You better believe it was my family member. But for my own protection, I had to knock some sense into him, and I guess I did. No, I wasn't going to have him arrested. That wasn't the point. I wanted to scare him a little bit. And I did. He calls me up from KO, begging to come back and blah, blah, blah. I was reluctant, but what am I going to do, leave him on the street? No, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. Of course I took him back in. But I had to set him straight that I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I want to feel safe in my own house. Interesting story, right, folks? Can't get more personal than this. You can't, really. But I wanted to set the record straight once and for all. Not that I really have to prove anything to anybody. This is quite voluntarily. When you're making judgment on me for any reason at all, please understand that people can say anything they want, but it doesn't mean that it's true. Like Tyler Perry said, I got families that, I consider very toxic. They need my help. I'm there for them. But they're not going to live with me or live anywhere close to me. Nobody knows for 14 years that I've actually physically lived with him next door what I went through. You don't know. It affected me terribly. But my inner strength got me through it. And what was I going to do with him? Throw him on the street? I couldn't do that. So I had to kind of tolerate as much as I can. Oh, we went places together. We took road trips in Hawaii all the time. We did things together. Those are the enjoyable moments. Get him out of the house, he becomes more spiritual and blah, blah, blah. We'll look at the ocean, and it's these rides that really helped him. He couldn't stay home. He would take his van and, he'd go out on his own to the ocean and whatever. Roll up a doobie, I guess, but, okay, I have no problem with that. So, yes, this show is in defense of my brother for his own honor, because the trolls love to talk about people, and they try to get down and dirty and talk about family. In regards to my sister, might as well do the whole thing here. In regards to my sister, she's a pretty decent person internally. And I do have a certain love for my sister, although I shouldn't. But she's a decent person. I think it really has to do with the man that she married, who's a real scumbag. Look, you're settled in your ways. How many years you've been married? 50 years? Whatever. You're not about to leave each other. You need each other's social security, let's face it. If anything at all. Okay? They had children together. Da-da-da. Oh, my sister said horrible things to me. She wished I was dead on a phone call. That's how toxic she could be. It's only because her husband was pressuring her. Her husband didn't like anybody in my family. He didn't like anybody. I didn't even think the guy had any personal friends other than the volunteer fire department he worked from. Or maybe perhaps when he was working, a few workmates. But he never had a lot of friends. He was toxic. That's the key word here. Toxic. And people do have toxic members in the family, as Tyler Perry said on that recording. And what do you do with toxic people in the family? Okay. They're your family, they're your relatives, and you want to love them, but you want to love them long distance. They need something, you help them out. I've did that a good majority of my brother's life. In fact, I've sacrificed even for myself. That I would do things for him I wouldn't do for myself. So I'm such a bad guy. I don't have to explain that either, whether I'm a bad guy or a good guy. I know what I've done for people, even outside of my family, even here in the Philippines, no matter where I lived, whether I lived in Hawaii, Seattle, or bumfuck Egypt. I know the good I've done for people because I'm actually surprisingly very compassionate, if compassion is deserved. But I don't give compassion out very freely. So when you don't know the story, shut your fucking mouths. When you don't know the story. I'm a very giving, caring, compassionate person when deserved, even when not deserved. Even when not deserved. And I did that with my brother. My sister, who I've always had odds with, How many times said out of her own mouth, she says, I know me and Al have discussed this a lot. Al would always tell her, if it wasn't for Frankie, I would never be alive. And my sister would relate that to me, coming from my brother's mouth. That's what a brother does for his brother, despite toxicity, despite whatever their situation is, the negativity, you're there for your family member. And I was. And in regards to my daughter, that's just out of my control. I love my daughter. But when you give people advice and they don't want to take it, then they get mad when, well, they don't take your advice and things happen. And when you personally get tired of giving advice and people are not taking your advice, that kind of takes a toll on you. When somebody repeats the same thing over and over again, she'd be calling my brother up all the time too. But Uncle Al, you know, and my brother would give her advice. For change, he was giving somebody else advice. She wouldn't take his advice either. No, she wouldn't. She'd just go ahead and do things on her own. So why, why did you even ask for giving any of your goddamn advice? This is the way it was with her. She'd make mistakes, being with the wrong person. But I love him. But I love him. Yeah, she went out. She had a husband who was, well, turned out to be something less than a human and went to jail for it. Then she had a makeshift boyfriend who she was more of a mommy to than an actually a relationship. He was also a chronic drinker and pot smoker. Perfect around her kids, right? Perfect. He'd even smoke pot in the house, which would piss her off, and cheating on her behind her back, even bringing a girlfriend from work that supposedly is a workmate, but actually he was having sex with her. Until she figured it out. And because of any loneliness or potential loneliness, she still took him in afterwards until it just didn't work out after a while, and she was all frazzed out. Yeah, this is highly personal. But since you are so curious about everything to do personal with Uncle Frankie here, I'll give you it. There you go. There's a family dynamics, and they always seem to point the finger to me when they don't know the truth. But I'm talking about this also because it's a life lesson to people. Not to judge others based on what you hear. There's always two sides of a story, but some people only want to emphasize one side of a story. And that started out by becoming too personal on YouTube, where you have actually leaked out information about your family and they ran with it. I figured, let's run with it all the way. Let's grab the ball. So I figured, let's grab the ball and run with it. Why not? Why not? To make people see what a fool that they've been and their judgment. Gee, I should wear a medal on me. The man who helps crippled people out. The man who gives the families, where a family of 6 were living on one bed, on a blanket, without even a mattress. And I would come over there one Christmas with a mattress for them. I would do things like this, helping a person who had some kind of a nervous disorder, couldn't stop moving, didn't even have a mattress either, or a pillow. I came over there originally to give him some food when I heard of his situation. Instead, I got the food, but came over with a mattress and a pillow for the guy. I even caressed his face with my hand and said, hey, take care. That's the evil person that I am. And how many times I paid for people's groceries. I mean, the list goes on. But this is not a show about let me prove what a wonderful person I am. I know what I've done. I can go to my grave when that time comes feeling that I know exactly who I am and what good I've done in life to people I love and even strangers. When you don't know the real story about somebody, it's not your job to point out what you think is somebody's fault. Just because you don't like somebody, it's not going to change the person who they are and what they've actually done for others. What really gets me is that statement from Nico and so forth, or Popeye, that I don't even care for my brother. What, I'm going to give up my life to go to Hawaii at the time to go be with him? A toxic person? Not his fault. Not his fault, but he was toxic, okay? And be his nursemaid? When he had all the medical things available to him, even occasionally visiting nurse, visiting social workers, some support from people he knew, I was to give up my whole life to go back to a toxic situation that ultimately could have killed me, killed my soul, killed my heart, maybe even literally. No, I wasn't going to do that. Instead, like Tyler Perry said, I'm there, you can still care for your family long distance. That's exactly what I did. I'm talking every 3 days or less, I would call him up voluntarily. He didn't have to call me. Well, how you doing today? So what's going on? Did you see that doctor? What did he say? I said, well, get another opinion. Or push him and tell him, look, and I could tell you that the medical system over there was, on that island, was terrible. He was dealing with multiple health issues. Could never get it right, because it was like a McDonald's, fast food. Go in there, get your burger and fries, and get the fuck out. That's the way it was. My brother didn't have a chance. He didn't have a chance. So when you talk about my brother, label him as a drug addict, Nico, and others, look at yourself first before you, again, cast that fucking stone. My brother was a decent person. He just got wrong crowd when he was a kid, and he paid for it, and he paid for it with his life. And to make any assumption or accusation that I was never there for my brother, it was exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Maybe I was there too much for my brother. Maybe I rescued him too many times. I made his life a lot easier. And sometimes easier to continue some of the shit he did, because he kept on drinking when he knows he shouldn't be. Complaining about money all the time. I get into arguments with him over, well, maybe he'll have more money per month if you start buying that fucking booze. A logical statement to make, wouldn't you think? Makes sense? But you can't change a person sometimes. They're going to do whatever it is they want to do, just like trolls. Trolls will troll people. They will hate, spread hate, and call you the hater to make themselves feel better, or to make the other YouTubers look at them as if they're some fucking heroes. Like, they know something about me that they're going to tell everybody on YouTube about what a bad person I am. Yeah, in their minds, that's what they want, because they're not living the lives that you think they're living. They're not, any one of them. You've learned things about Popeye, you now learn things about Nico, just to name a few. They're not perfect people. Yeah, they are scumbags. Let's just say it, they're scumbags. They're absolute scumbags, whose motto is go after family. Even if you have a dead member of the family, let's kind of defecate on them. Let's say horrible things about them. Because they figure, well, what's going to set somebody off? Talk about their family. Well, you're probably right on that. Okay. You're probably right on that. As most normal people would be very pissed about that when there's no reason to bring in somebody's family. It's not abnormal to be defensive when somebody's talking about your family when they have no fucking clue what the dynamics were. Everybody has family dynamics. Whatever the reason is that me and my daughter don't talk, whatever reason is me and my sister don't get along, maybe it's not me. Do you ever think about that? Sometimes it is the other person. Sometimes it is. In my case, it was. So I'm going to stop living my life and spend all my time worrying about what family members think about me or what anybody thinks about me. I take care of business, period. Whatever business needs to be taken care of, I get things done. And despite the toxic, the poison that my brother spewed, and it wasn't just to me, he'd be very negative, and there'd be people he met that didn't want to hang around with him and visit him. He was too self-pity. I can think of a lot of things, really. Well, figuratively, really, but almost literally. I'd feel his negativity through the walls of my house out there. That's how bad it was. So you don't know what I have been through, rescuing people like my brother. He was the biggest rescue in my life. I've rescued dogs. I've had several dogs that are rescues, one of them right now. Number of dogs. Always Frank to the rescue. Rescue Rooter Frank. When I gave of myself and nothing was ever given back to me, whether it was advice to my daughter that she never took, and I'm the bad guy, right? I'm supposedly the bad guy. No, you know nothing about me other than what I will actually tell you here on my show. You know nothing about me at all. And everybody harping about the Barry Jordan shit. He belongs where he is, and more. He was not the most righteous person, and that I think everybody on here would agree. We know the things that he's done. We know a whole lot. Public knowledge for years. That he's not a very righteous person. We all know that without question. Where he is, he belongs, and more, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not even enough as far as I'm concerned, but I can only go what the court system's going to do, and whatever they make a decision on, that's their decision, and it's not going to be mine. So before you point your crooked fingers and say, Frank is this, Frank is that, you don't know me on any level that you think you know me. And maybe this show, which is not a necessary show to do, but I wanted to do this show, and I'm going to clear the air on these issues once and for all. Sometimes we have families that don't see eye to eye. You could love people from long distance, but you can't have them live with you or be with you because you don't want to accept all the toxicity, the poison in your life. That's the case with me. So for anybody think I've never helped my brother, didn't show love, didn't show support on every level possible, oh, you're terribly wrong on that. But you know you are. Because I've talked about things like this before. But you'd have to turn it around and say, Frank's a bad guy. Didn't care for his brother. Left him ill in Hawaii. Well, he made himself ill, number one. And I was his nursemaid. Well, if you want to count Seattle and the times I rescued him, I was probably his nursemaid for 20 fucking years. About time I have my life. I couldn't stay with him if I wanted to. That would have been a great reason alone to leave Hawaii and move to the Philippines, not just for a woman. Finally at peace to a certain point in my mind, getting away from all the toxins I had to live with. We could actually feel that negative energy just crawl through the fucking pores of my walls. That's how bad it was. Still loved him, still my brother, still supported him in every way, morally, emotionally, even financially. How many people would do that for their family members? I don't know. Maybe all of you would. Maybe some of you would say, fuck this, I want nothing to do with it. You're on your own, pal. No, my brother was never on his own. I was always there till the day he died. Yes, I didn't know about it. Let's straighten that out. Nico, you scumbag. I didn't know about it until somebody wrote me and said I came by and something's wrong. I don't see him there. So called, not answering for over a week or more. Reluctantly called my sister up and tell her that she interrupted me. Says, Frankie, Al died on March 8th. Oh, thanks for telling me, sis. This is what I mean. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like I didn't have a right to know that he died? My brother? Because she had her problems with me? I didn't have the right to know? She might talk to him once a week or more. I'd be talking to him every couple of days. I'd be calling him, how are you doing? Tell me what happened on this last test. Whatever. Please, don't even go there with me. I gave up a good part of my life for my brother. Because that's the person I am. And you could call me every name in the book and label me everything that you want to label me. That's fine. But only I know the truth. But the truth has come out on this show here. I'm not the guy with the black cat. Not at all. Not even remotely. So pardon me when somebody crosses the line when they were warned again, like I'm the bad guy in putting somebody in a legal situation. Pardon me, but I think there's a limit as to what you should be able to deal with or want to deal with or should deal with when you've got to put the hammer down and say, enough is enough is enough. And that's what I did with Mr. Jordan. Enough was enough. Taking insults for fucking 10 years on YouTube. I survived it. Never ran away with my tail between my legs. Never did. I just forged on. Because truth is truth. You can call me any name in a fucking book you want. Doesn't mean it's true. It might make you feel better. Label me as this or that. Yeah, it might make you feel better, but does it mean it's the truth? No. But it makes you feel good, doesn't it? It makes you feel good. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to have my morning tea. Shame on people that waste their life and are so absorbed in somebody else's life. I would say it was a more than good indicator that their life is out of control. And they want to just project. They want somebody else to feel bad and horrible about their life, hope their relationship breaks up, hope something happens to you, hope you die, like Nico Pop, hope you die. Nico said to me, hope you die, and Pop, I would say, I hope you die. They want to see me on a steel slab. Well, like I said, I'm a betting man. I would bet that these two jamolis, and they like to talk about my age. So what about my age? I earned every fucking year, let me tell you that. And I am still pretty healthy. I can't say that about these two guys, especially Nico. He thinks he's going to make it to my age. He's fooling himself. They like to talk about people's age as if, they're not aging. That's not going to happen to me. I'm just too extra special sauce. I'm not going to age. No, probably not going to live to my age. They say that if you live to my age, you got a damn good chance of living a hell of a lot longer. I was just reading something on that last night, actually. If you don't have any really bad or debilitating health conditions by my age, it's looking pretty good that you're going to be around for a while, unless something came up unexpectedly. Yeah, I got that going for me. How about that? How long will you live? How long did Fazio think he was going to live? How long? His cantankerous nature doesn't mean that he had control. He had no control of his life at all. Didn't even try. There's some people that can do things that could help them. But out of their stubbornness or pettiness, they won't do it. That's not my doing. It's their stupidity. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I get angered when, just like other people, there could be things that set me off. That's normal. But I get over it. You'll even say things that you don't mean. That's normal. So I say to you, get over it. I'm human. Period. Although some of these people I would call subhuman. As the real Popeye said, I am what I am what I am. And if you don't like who I am, you don't have to listen to me. You don't have to deal with me. You don't have to live with me. Oh, that's a plus. You don't have to live with me. I'm too toxic for you, huh? Well, I'll tell you what. I can become toxic when I want. But for a reason. I could lay that fucking hammer down when I need to lay that hammer down, when it's necessary. Full force. If I need to. Full force. And I have. And I will continue. You can defame me, you can defame my family, you can say everything you want. But the very people that talk about that are the hateful ones. They're the ones who having the biggest problems in their life. but they're not going to admit it to you unless somebody slips and says something about them. We find out the real truth about some of these jamolis, what their life is really like. Oh, they'll tell you anything you want. I got the best, grill in the world. I got the Grand Poobah grill when they actually got it from Walmart, I've got a ranch with lots of cattle. I'm rich. I do everything better than you. Why do you feel that you have to prove yourself? Unless you're not really living that lifestyle. Some guy who buys a fucking mobility scooter and his own adopted son, not legal, slips and says no, he doesn't use it to get around like a regular scooter. He uses it as a mobility vehicle. Oh, it comes out. Then the same Jamoli who's knocking the fact I worked for a parks department, which was nothing wrong with that at all. Suddenly, see how things come out. I find out that he was working for the parks department. Coinky dinky? You see what I mean? How things turn on people when they don't expect it. And he was knocking the fact that I work for it. But what's wrong with working for the Parks Department? What was wrong with that? Mine was city, his was county. The motherfucker worked for the Parks Department. And he was making fun of me. Did I work for the Parks Department? Saying that my job was picking up condoms. Well, I could say the same thing to that Jamoli. How many condoms did you pick up, sir? But you won't talk about that. You just want to talk about your Navy career, your illustrious Navy career, and then winds up in the Parks Department. Oh, I got a college degree. Yes, I did. But I didn't wind up really working for the rest of my life on that profession. No, I didn't do that. Things change. Same with him. His illustrious career in the Navy, you'd think it would lead to better and bigger things. But it didn't. He worked in the Parks Department. You see how all this shit gets turned around on people? That's called karma, too. When they think their shit don't stink, yeah. But when the toilet doesn't flush and their shit lays in there for a while, everybody's going to smell that stink of theirs. And this is exactly what happens on here. We're all smelling their stink. Popeye stink. Nico stink, and so forth down the line. People have eaten so many plates of crow, gratis Frank Battaglia, through the years. And I joke about it and said, the crow, I'm surprised, has not become extinct. And I couldn't afford the amount of plates, the best chinaware I could give, to serve these people this crow. Because I would go broke. I would continue to go broke if I had to keep on serving crow to the people that deserve it. So when you think you know who I am, what I'm all about, well, apparently you learned that I am not that person after all. Don't make judgments, people, based on some haters on YouTube. You make your own personal judgments based on fact and reality, not because somebody don't like somebody else. Imagine wishing them on a steel slab. Oh, you got class, Nico and Papa. You really do. You did that with another person, too. Really shameful. This is what their life is about. They cannot, in other words, afford to talk about anybody else because their life, one way or another, is out of control. So there's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. You like to get personal with me? I'm getting an hour's worth of just straightening this crap out, which I'm not obligated to do. I don't have to say shit about my family. But since I've had a big mouth in the past and I talk too much personal things, let's just get it out in the open once and for all. Let's just get it out in the open. I'm not trying to call myself a goddamn hero, but might as well, because what I've done for other people that many of you would never do, toxic family members, I was still there for them, wasn't I? I'm still there for my daughter right now. She wants to reach out. I'm not that kind of person. I can only do the best I can, put my best foot forward out. If it gets stepped on, that's out of my control. That's the way I see life. You just continue on with your life and do the best you can and not make the mistakes that certain family members have made. Never got into drugs like that. In fact, my brother saved my life. Seeing what he went through on drugs growing up made me fucking straight. And the only thing I ever did was smoke cigarettes, which I really regret. But I rarely ever smoked pot ever. I've tried it a few times, more than a few times actually. And each time, maybe it was like 6 times, 7 times in my whole life. I didn't like it. Didn't like it. I still don't. I don't even like taking a prescription drug. I don't even like taking ibuprofen, in fact. That's the way I am. But sometimes you got to do things you have to do. You got diabetes, take diabetes medicine. You got heart problems, you take heart medicine. Simple as that. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. And a lot of the same jamolis that are making fun of people that they have to take a prescription drug to help with something, how many drugs are they on? But they're not going to tell you that. Good show. I think this is one of my better shows. There you go. Make judgment all you want, but you're not living my life. And yes, you only wish you had my relationship. You only wish. And your wildest fucking dreams. Yes, I do got my shit together. Yes, I do got my ducks in a row. Yes, I'm happy in my life. I'm happy with my partner. Happy with my house. And I think I'm pretty reasonably happy actually living out here in the Philippines, actually. End of story. Write that one down. There you go. Take notes.